Hello, good people. I hope you all are in the best of health and spirits as always. Coming to you guys with another video. And as we know, I only come with the content when I feel the content is necessary. And I was having an interesting conversation with a gentleman. We were in the airport. He was headed to the Philippines, and I was headed to Vietnam. And we were having a talk about, he asked me, he said, "Sir, I've been speaking to you now for about 30 minutes while we wait for this flight, and you seem to have a lot of information. You seem to travel and do your due diligence. And, we talked about a few places we've been, so he had knowledge that I've done extensive travel. And he said, what would be the major advice you would give a person like myself who's ready to move out of the UK and move to the Philippines about staying focused? Like, do you find it hard to focus?" And I thought that was a very respectful question from the gentleman. And it also made me gain a short respect for the man in a short period of time, because not only was he very eloquent in the way he was speaking, he was very gracious. And, he told me about his family and things of that nature, what he was doing for a living. And it got me to a point to really break it down to him. For me personally, the hardest part is just staying focused on being driven, not getting complacent. See, because as we live in Southeast Asia off U.S. currency, where the U.S. currency still has value, against the Thai baht. In Thailand, it still does pretty good. In Malaysia, against the ringgit, still performing. And then, in Indonesia and Bali, and where I stay part of the year, they have the rupiah. So, it's not as bad as the U.S. currency towards the euro right now. So you can still dominate on a high level if you have finances coming from America. So I say that to say, staying focused and working hard and always looking to better yourself as a man is very important. And I'm not giving any lectures or game or any kind of knowledge that you have not already learned as a grown man if you're of age, or if you had proper fathering in your household. You must always look to better yourself, always look to get more dominance as far as property, territory, land, and financially. So, being in a lot of these areas like Southeast Asia, Thailand, for instance, where I own my condo, one of the places, you can get complacent very easily. See, because in all of these countries I live, I have a chef, I have a maid, I have a driver. These countries, it's cheaper to eat out at fine restaurants than it is to eat in. So, I'm living a very leisure life. And if you're a person who can get easily thrown off track, this will get you complacent. In Bali, you could be on the beach for $500, $600 American. You could be on the beach, or, $1,000 or less. You could definitely have a nice little bungalow, be on the beach, and be living a life. And a lot of the Australians that I meet there in Bali, because most of the people I meet in Bali are Australian. I meet Americans too, but most of the long-term people or the people traveling there are from Australia. Because in Australia, when they get to a certain age, they all travel, and they mostly do it to Bali. And I say that to get to the point of, a lot of these people are complacent. They're just happy being on the beach. They're happy just being there cheaply. And then you'll have people from the West, from America, you'll meet there, and they're the same thing, just happy being in that mind state. They don't want to talk about business. There's no energy towards business. This isn't a place for people with startups. Don't get me wrong. I've met groups of individuals that come here as a group, as a collective, to cohesively work on projects, Bitcoin, or they're starting apps or doing apps, which I'm getting very involved with Claude, creating my own apps. Very fascinating stuff. And I advise you to get on top of the AI movement if you're not already, because sooner or later you will be obsolete if you do not have the skills to navigate in that world. But back to the point of complacency. These aren't the places to where you're going to find these kind of conversations. As in, if you're living in a place like Dubai, if you're brave enough to do so after recent events we see, they are touchable. It's not the safe haven people thought. But if you're living there, there is this attitude, this atmosphere of trying to get the money, driven people, focused folks. These are folks to where you're going to be in conversations with people, pardon me. You're going to be in more conversations with people that are more business orientated, more focused on, either running a business, running multiple businesses, or starting businesses, or people in the infant stages that have that energy that are trying to grow. So, if you're a person who can get easily knocked off track and you do not travel back to America, which is one reason why within a calendar year, I try and get back to America at least a month or two. Two is stretching it, but at least a month to put my feet on land, I'm still a taxpayer in America, even though I don't live there, thanks to the country and their global taxation on citizens. So I like to put my feet on the land and get the feel. Most importantly, I like to go back to talk to the people, get the morale in. And last time I was in America, the morale was very low, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos. But it's also important to get back to America so you can be back around the rat race. America is an intense work, even though the system has it to where you work with no benefit. You work at the jeopardy of quality of life. It's still a heavy work environment, and not too many countries alike that I've been. Singapore is one of them. That's a country where they're very work driven. Actually, if you're on a work visa, Singapore is very competitional, because if you lose your job in Singapore, I believe you're like 30 days if you're on a work visa to find a new job, because they know the passport strength. Singapore is the #1 passport in the world, and for a good reason. It's an immaculately clean country, very well ran, and the most internationally connected country in the world. It makes sense. So it gets back to, if you're not in a place to where the people that are traveling there, because you're not worried about the locals, you're already going to be above the locals if you're coming from America, for sure, with American finances in most places, unless you're moving to Switzerland, somewhere with exorbitant amounts of wealth and where their currency dominates the American currency. For the most part, you're going to be coming to, if you're going to Southeast Asia, countries to where poverty, you're going to be above the poverty level just off the strength of making the minimum amount that would get you by in your own country like America. So you can easily get caught up in, oh, I'm just going to relax, I'm going to the beach. A lot of these men, they go to these countries and date the women there, so they get sidetracked with that and end up spending money on them, or they end up just losing their business due to not being focused on running the business while living abroad, because you can very easily get caught up. One day turns into a month quick when you're living in these different countries, because everything's new. Just imagine yourself as a kid when you were young and everything was new. You're just seeing all kind of new things. So one day can turn into another day, days turn into nights, nights turn into weeks, and so on and so forth. So time can travel on you quick, especially when you're moving to different places. So you want to be around, if you can't identify with focused people, focused individuals, and if you're going to be living in these countries, you want to identify with those people. You want to have a solid amount of contacts that are still doing business currently. And even if you can't do business together, their energy of being focused on, yeah, I got to go. I just had a friend text me from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, where I live. He lives in my building, and he was texting me a new idea, something that he had came across while doing some research, and he ran it by me. Not to get my input on the actual idea, but just to more or less give me the information in case I wanted to act on it. And this all comes from the due diligence of him being a person who's still looking to dominate, still looking to conquer. And he's in his 40s to where he's still trying to gain money. He's still trying to earn. He's not relaxed. He's not retired. So you want to be around, your network of people is going to determine how easy or hard it is for you to stay focused on always trying to better yourself financially while living in places to where you can very easily dominate with low amounts of currency from where you come from if it's America. So, you have to get this, you have to have it within yourself. And I recommend it because, as we see geopolitically with things going on right now, even in Southeast Asia right here, things are getting more condensed as far as the resources, being as though the Strait of Hormuz is blocked and Southeast Asia gets all the resources from there. Agriculture, growing and things like that are probably already behind schedule due to the Strait, So these things will get affected. And I say that to say you always never know when you have to move. Things hit the fan. If war breaks out in more places or a place near you, you might have to resort back to going back to America. And if you resort to going back to America, you're not going to be mentally prepared. All your drive is going to be out of you because you've been living this lackadaisical, laid back, oh, I can just float above ground and, have these luxuries that in America will cost you a lot of money, but in these countries are very cheap, as I mentioned, with a maid and a driver and a chef and things of that nature. So you can easily get mentally caught on easy street to where you need to be in overdrive. And it's more important now than ever, especially if you're a person that doesn't already have a retirement that you're living off in the country. Even then, I would still be motivated. Like, I'll get a partial retirement when I turn 55 from the carpentry union. But even with that, in America, in 11 years, when I get that wouldn't be enough to live off of with inflation. Who knows where it'll be in 11 years. But I could theoretically live off it in Southeast Asia, depending if no major changes happen to the dollar, which probably will happen because the petrodollar is in great threat. And I spoke on that in previous videos, the function of petrodollar and why it's threatened. But, as long as the currency stays good, I can pretty much live off of that if in Southeast Asia, everywhere barring Singapore, because there you could be spending more per square foot than America potentially. So I say that to get to the point of you always have to be ready to, you might have to jump back into the jungle being America, the belly of the beast. Sometimes it's best to keep your enemies close. And in America's standpoint, with war going on and them causing war everywhere, and now with them talking about joining militaries with Israel, who knows the carnage they're going to be running around trying to cause. So, it's going to be high alert times. So say you had to go back to America, would you be able to adjust? Would you be able to do so? Some of you don't have credit. In a lot of these countries, credit is obsolete. Southeast Asia, you don't have to worry about credit. So maybe some of you let that slip a little bit. And that gets to the point also, it's a huge disadvantage for you to be in these countries and you're just out there thinking you are always going to be there. You are a guest there. If you don't have any citizenship or any residency or any path to citizenship, then you always need to be thinking about what's next. Can I adjust? Even if you have to go to a different country than your original country you left. You might have to go to and pivot to a different area, and like during in Thailand, I was out there for the earthquake they had in Myanmar. I went to Colombia and stayed there for a while because I was ready. I was on deck. I was on point. I had a backup. And you want to have that same thing as far as your drive. You want to have backup things that will keep you driven. So I like to have other investments. Therefore, you need capital. You always are looking to raise capital or use your own capital. So that keeps you focused on gaining. And I'm always looking to do more things that can make money. I'll have short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals, as everybody should. And I'm not telling you this as any kind of financial advisor or anybody telling you how to get rich. I'm not rich. I have enough to do what I want to do and run my campaign in all countries of the world. That's enough for me until I get wealth. You'll know when I'm rich because I'll be living in Switzerland, without a doubt. But I say all that to say, I stay driven within myself. I'm a person who's driven. Even when I was doing union carpentry, I always had different things I was doing on the side. I was always keeping an ear open for investments or any kind of thing like that. Because, to get wealthy, you're going to have to do it through some kind of investment, some kind of thing outside of your initial earning. You're trading your time for dollars. So me knowing that, I'm always staying diligent. Like I say, right now, my thing is I'm heavy on the AI. I'm messing with the Claude. I'm creating the apps, submitting them to the Google store. I got an Apple developer situation where I'm trying to utilize that to get these apps going, which is going to require capital because all my apps are good apps. They're for everyday use. And they are going to be quick to catch on, but marketing takes capital. I could easily do it just with myself. I get millions of views on Instagram, so I can promote anything myself. I have promotion power, but I just want to do it when it's all right and then leverage that with other creators to get it out there because all the apps too I've created already that have been accepted by the Apple Play Store, they're ready to go. They're good money. They're knock out the park ideas. But I say all that to say these things keep me engaged and excited. And if you're not a business type person and you're alone and you're not with a mate that's a business type person, you need to be super duper focused on keeping yourself earning more, doing more, investing more. You might need to, I never recommend anybody trying to move by using social media for money, but if you haven't already done content and you're in a different country, you might want to do that. YouTube pays once a month. They're very finicky. It's a censorship situation. I don't recommend anybody go into it to depend on finance, but it is another avenue of revenue if you're in places to where you can be showing these places, monetize it, and it's a niche. It doesn't put the attention on you. You don't have to convince people how cool or important what you're saying is because it's about the places. And as long as you tell the truth and show the places, you can grow a little following off of that. So that's another means of income. And when you're in these countries, get around the people that are moving and shaking in the money and talk to the local business owners. A lot of these people in these countries are looking for investments. They're looking for people to help them invest. I can't tell you how many times I actually did a deal with my cleaner when I was in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I did a deal with my cleaner because he had a business, he had a company, he was getting, he had a motorbike business as well as being a cleaner. A couple of the bikes needed work and he just needed to get it up to spec and he can get it running. He already had the clientele. He could already show me the list of people that were waiting for either repairs, he needed parts, or he needed bikes actually fixed so he can rent them out. We worked a deal, it worked out good. It's not a large amount of money, but it is money. It's more income coming in. To him, it's a lot. To me, it's minimum. But to me, it's something to earn in that in that country. And also, I have bank account in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur. So, earning the ringgit, I can leave it in that and do whatever with it and structure it that way, or I can use Wise and, convert or whatever I want to do, which is why I say get a Wise card. That's good with currency conversion and things of that nature. But always look for avenues and never get sidetracked, because in this life of travel, sometimes we're so excited to leave the place we came from and get to a new place. We sometimes forget ourselves in staying focused and driven and always looking to make more income. Just because you move to a country that's cheaper for cost of living than the country you were in doesn't mean you just give up. Now, if you're older, you're retired, and your lifestyle, you don't want the demands of still doing business, still doing research, still doing, networking and things of that nature, I understand that. This isn't for you. But I recommend for definitely anybody 50 and under, or anybody no matter what age, if you don't have a retirement and you're living in different countries abroad, you need to definitely stay focused on earning, because you will get sidetracked. It's very easy to trick yourself into thinking you have actual wealth. In all these countries, there is actual wealth. There's real wealthy people, even by American standards. But most Americans and foreigners that go to different countries, they're not amongst these people, because most are trying to live on some kind of discount. I meet so many people in Bangkok. My condo's in an area called Chilom, which is the business area, mostly Chinese people. I bought my condo from a Chinese man. And most of those people are people to where expats and people trying to live dirt cheap will never meet, because these people are living at a high level even in that country. So wherever you go, I don't recommend you trying to live dirt cheap. Now, if you have to do that for a little while, get your weight up, and then in the country move up, cool. But I know people in Thailand, for instance, that have been in Pattaya, the cheapest area in Thailand. It's like a bar area with nothing but pros and pay for play type thing, so it attracts a lot of men. They've been there for years. Like, bro, you didn't make it to Bangkok yet? You need to be around the movers and shakers of money. Even in Koh Samui, my next door neighbor, he owns businesses. I rent in Wall Hin in Thailand. He owns my next door neighbor. He works in the community, does a lot with the community, does a lot of peace work and all kind of humanitarian work. So you rub shoulders and you need to be rubbing shoulders with the people doing things. Always stay around the doers and not the talkers. And if you're a laid back person and you just want to be happy being laid back on the beach or living cheap somewhere, fine, do that. This is for the motivated people. This is just a spark for you to let you know that everybody goes through this, no matter what your finances were before you left the country, arriving in a new country. I was having the same conversation with my friend in Colombia, in Medellin. He owns a apartment in Medellin and El Poblado and Laureles, and I rent from him when I go to Colombia long term, because it's so hard to get long term rentals as a foreigner. And I was talking to him about staying motivated, because he comes from Miami and lives in Colombia. And he's like, yeah, it's a lot cheaper than what I was living, but I still need to stay driven. I still need to stay focused. I have family members that I'm trying to move here and things of that nature. So everybody is driven by different things, but you need to identify these things that drive you to keep earning currency, because the worst thing you can ever have happen is all of a sudden you need to leave, and now your money is funny, or you don't have the same opportunities because you've been gone so long from your country to get back into the money, to get back into the mix of earning power you need to strive and dominate in that and live a comfortable life in that country. So I just wanted to reiterate that in this video. Everybody, please stay driven. Find your passions, do your passions. And if your passion is just relaxing, doing nothing, living for cheap, that's cool. Just always be ready, at least with a backup plan. And if you're in these countries, also utilize, since the cost of living is lower, saving. It should be easier to save. In America, I can understand. A lot of people have trouble saving. It takes a lot of extra capital to have money to pay your bills, do all you need to do. If you have kids, da-di-da, student loans or whatever you got coming in and out of your money. Credit is a big trap in America, so a lot of people have credit card debts. So it's very hard to save on top of earning. But if you're living in Vietnam from America, and say you're getting $5,000, $6,000 a month USD, there's no reason you shouldn't be saving a large amount of money living in a country like Vietnam. It doesn't mean go get the biggest condo you can get out there, even though it will be cheaper than America. Get what you need and move up gradually the same way. And that also, the saving part of it, the saving the money being outside of America. Because I'm telling you, we live in times to where, if one of these countries like America or Israel just launches an attack, you can be affected and you might have to go back. You might have to, and don't get caught with your pants down. And that statement means don't get caught not ready. And, just keep traveling. I always try and inspire you guys on that, but I try and come with points that I don't see other content creators make. And a lot of them are just showing you normal stuff, all the goods in a country and not the bads. So, I recommend you staying focused because I want you to stay out there. I want you to be able to continue your travels abroad. And to do that, it does take finance. So everybody just stay diligent. I hope some of the points I've given you in this video help you to stay focused and not fall into the trap. But I just had to do this video because, like I said, I was having this conversation with a gentleman in the airport, and this would be the major thing I tell people, other than the traps of women in different countries, because every culture is different. Always keep yourself as a man focused on earning more, your earning power, no matter how cheap the country you're in is, because moving from a country that costs more than the country you're in now can get you in a lackadaisical trap of just the illusion of false wealth. Because you can run around, tell people, and the conversations you'll have with other people will also trigger you to think you're rich. Because, pardon me. Yeah, I have a maid here, I have a chef here, I have a driver here. Sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah. But these things are low cost. It's not like a person in America telling you I have 3 maids, 3 chefs, and 3 drivers. So always have that reality check. And that's the biggest tip to keep you financially driven. Always be realistic with yourself on your finances. All the fraud and talking's fun, but you know what's in that account or accounts. So everybody just stay safe. If you're traveling, moving, do your due diligence. We're living in violent times, dangerous times. It's always violent when Europeans are on the planet. But, right now, it's go time for a lot of countries. And I always got to take time to salute Iran for the bravery and the military tactics they're showing. It's truly remarkable. And for a man like me with that still has testosterone, these are times. These are times where we want to get engaged. We want to speak out. We want to be out there. And for me, just country to country, I'm just out there and talking with the people, always with respect, because I respect all's views, even though a lot of people talk non-intelligent topics. I just stay engaged, and when I meet good people that I can see eye to eye with, and they're talking facts over opinions, it's great conversations that we're having these days with the current events. So everybody stay diligent, stay doing what you're doing if it's doing you well, and I'll check back in with another video. Right now, I just really wanted to stress on stay focused on earning power. Even though you're living in a cheaper country, does not mean you need to slow down on trying to dominate and earn, because you might want to move to another country sooner or later, and that country might cost more than the country you're in now. So just keep that in mind. I just wanted to pull y'all coats to those few topics, and just stay safe. It's always been a pleasure talking to you guys, and I'm gonna get back to it because I gotta go to the gym. But everybody be safe, and if you have any questions, I have a big following on Instagram. So just at Luckhef, LUCKHEF. You can DM me there any questions you have, and I don't mind answering. I'll get to it. But that's where most of my action is, most of my traction, most of my audience. I do a lot of content on there as far as reels and things of that nature. So everybody stay safe, stay traveling, and I'll get back to you soon. I'm checking out. Be safe.